Hi, and welcome to my channel. If you are new to my content, welcome. If you have watched any of my previous videos, thank you for coming back. So in one of my last videos, I showed you how I used Adobe Illustrator to make one of these graphics that I've altered. This is for a 20-ounce sublimation tumbler. So I took this graphic that I purchased on Design Bundles and I added an airbrushed background and I put it along both sides, the right and the left, so that whenever it is pressed and they're together, that it kind of hides the seam and it camouflages that a little bit. This design does not line up whenever you put the seam together, and it's hard to line it up anyway, but the pieces don't match up, so it's going to make it extra difficult. And you know, not everybody wants that, I call it, ugly seam straight down the back of their tumblers. So I use this as a way to hide the seam and then take a name. So I did the whole wrap first, and then after that was done, I put the name on top of it and I pressed it for a second time in a mug press. Silhouette Studio comes as a basic free edition. It costs nothing to download it. It costs nothing to use it. There are some restrictions to the free version. One, you can't use SVGs. Those are not supported, and that's probably one of the bigger things, but there's some other things when it comes to the ways you can save your designs and things like that. But the biggest thing is not having support for SVGs. So with that being said, I'm going to hop on over to Silhouette Studio and I'm going to open that program and we're going to get started. I'm going to show you another way that you can do the same thing for your sublimation tumblers. Alright, I have a blank screen here and I'm going to first pull in the background I'm going to use. This is a baseball background. I purchased it from Design Bundles, and if I can remember, I will link it down below in the description so you can find it. So I'm just going to let that load. Now, I should have said this before I did this, but something about working with PNGs. If you've not worked with PNGs before, you're kind of new to Silhouette and you really, don't really know a whole lot about the software, there is a setting that is found in the Edit and Preferences tab, and it's called Import. So if you click on Import, right here is the setting. It's called PNG Auto Trace. Now what PNG Auto Trace does when you have this selected is it imports your PNG, but it puts cut lines in it for you. So in previous versions of Silhouette Studio, and now I've been using Silhouette for 10 years, and definitely, I don't know when this change occurred, but it's been probably within the last maybe 2 years, maybe not even that long, I'm not real sure. But anyway, so this is a newer feature. At least to me, it's a newer feature. Like I said, I've been working with Silhouette Studio for 10 years. So what I can do, I have the option to turn this on or off. Where it used to be, it was not on. There was no option. But anyway, so if you've pulled in PNGs or these image files, it has to be a PNG. JPEGs do not work like this. It's only the PNGs. So if you've downloaded a graphic from Hungry JPEG or SoFontsy or any graphic site, and it's a PNG, and you open it and you see all these weird red lines all over your design, it's because you have this auto trace feature turned on. And the software is trying to detect all the little pieces that could be cut lines. So it's kind of trying to turn your design into a vector for you, like an auto trace or something. So for this, we don't need it. And it's not that it's going to hurt anything, but it's probably better if you don't look at all those lines all over the place. So I turn it off if I'm doing something like this. So we're just going to leave that off. Okay, now I have my design, and I don't need to mess with the I don't need to mess with anything here. I have my cutting mat set up. I have my media size. Basically, you want to make sure that this piece is going to fit on whatever it is you're working on. And we're not cutting anything, we're just using this to design. So I'm going to just close out of that. But there are two panels that we need to use. The first one, the first one that we're going to start with is the layers panel. Now normally the layers panel is hidden right over here. Sorry, my thumbnail's backwards, so I'm trying to figure out right or left. So your layers panel's right in here somewhere, and it's kind of hidden, so I have to stay away from the thumbnail. So when you go up to the layers panel, everything you have along the side over here is also right here, and right there as you scroll down is layers. So we're going to click and open that. Okay, this is where all of your pieces are going to lay, and we're going to arrange this. If you watched my other video, you saw that I'm working in the panel layer, in the layer panel in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to do the same thing similar in the silhouette, because the silhouette also has layers that you can work in. And you don't have to do this, but for me it's easier to keep things straight, because otherwise there's pieces all over the place and I don't know, it's just too hard for me to keep track of things when I'm cutting and cropping and pasting and all that. So this is just easier for me. So I'm going to name this, actually I'm not going to name it anything right now. I want to copy and paste it. So I need 2 copies of this. So I'm going to just select it, and you can go to edit, copy, and then edit, and we're going to paste in front. The reason I paste it in front is because it will put it exactly over the same thing. It doesn't really matter, but it's just a habit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take each one of these and I'm going to separate them, and I want to line it up. I want to line the seam up is what I'm really wanting to do. So I'm going to click once. Actually, I'm going to change this so I know which one I'm working with. So I just clicked on the right one, and I'm going to double click on this layer, and I'm going to change it to right. And then the other one, I'm going to double click and I'm going to change it to left. And I will be changing these to different names as I go on, because anytime I group something, it changes the name. Or it doesn't, I can't see everything in the stack, so it changes things for me. And I have to rename the groups to keep myself straight. Alright, I'm just going to align that to the top. And it's not necessary, it's just another thing that makes it easier for me to see when I'm going to merge them together. I'm going to put them together. So what I want to do now, I want to focus just on this top corner. So I'm going to take my little zoom tool and I'm just going to highlight that. So this is the only part I need to worry about. It's a straight line. So let's just highlight the left one, and I'm using my arrow keys, and I'm going to just pull it over. Let's see if I went too far or not. Very close. Okay, so just a couple more taps and I think we're lined up. We want it to be lined up even, but we don't want it overlapping and we don't want a space between them. You want them just right next to each other. Okay, now I'm going to come out here and I'm going to zoom out. Okay, so now I have my right side, and when I click on my panels you can see it highlights, and I have my left side. So the next thing I want to do is I want to bring in the background that I made. I made the background on, I used an airbrush on Procreate, and so I just colored in, I took the name that I already had made and I put the name on Procreate, and then I just used an airbrush tool and just lightly added white along that name, so that I have just used the name as a guide so that I knew exactly where I was coloring. That was kind of important. And then whenever I exported it, I deleted off the name and only exported that white piece. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, and that is this piece right here. So if I bring it over here, you can see it a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to copy, and now I'm going to come over and Command V. So Command C, copy, Command V, paste. And these are all under the edit or under your right mouse key. And then I'm going to take that white and I'm going to kind of hover it just a little bit, because I'm really, the biggest thing is I want to cover the seam. And you can see I've got a little bit over here, but the majority of it, I'm really concerned with just the middle. Part of the tail is going to go on one side and part of the ends are going to hang down on the other, and that's okay. I want to try to get it centered. And if you're not sure, where you want it, you can move that piece out of the way, and I can go back and I can select Command C. I can select the name since I already have it saved, and Command V. And I can take the name itself and I can put the name where I want it, and then I can go and select, which it says polygon. I'm going to put this here and call this name so I know what I'm dealing with. I'm going to end up deleting this anyway. So I'll select that airbrush. And then I can go and arrange it so that it's where I want it. And I can use my arrow keys. And again, this is not going to be perfect. The idea is, and the reason I use the diffused, that airbrush look, is so when it wraps, it doesn't have to be perfect. We want to have enough of the diffused, kind of vignette-like background so that when I put the name on, it doesn't look like anything is off center, or it doesn't look like I just put it anywhere, like it has a purpose for being there. Okay, so yeah, to me that looks good. So now I'm just going to collect that name. I'm just going to click on that name and I'm going to delete it because I don't need it now. The only thing I'm worried about is really the background and making sure that it lined up, because I'm gonna use the crop tool next after I get this separated. Okay, so we have a left side and we have a right side. And right now I have one airbrush, but I need two, because I'm going to have an airbrush section that goes on the right side of one piece and the left side of the other. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to, let's try this again. Copy and then paste in front. And I'm going to rename these 1 and 2, and it makes absolutely no difference at this point which one you put where. So I'm just going to now drag and drop. So I want to put one copy of airbrush with the left side and one copy of the airbrush with the right, but I'm not touching anything on the screen. I'm only working in that layers panel, and I'm just going to rearrange. So I can click airbrush 2 and hold it down with your mouse and drag it down, and now you can see that moved. So now we have a left and an airbrush and a right and an airbrush. So I'm going to take the right, click once and highlight, and then hold down your shift and click on the other airbrush. So now we have one right, one airbrush, and you can Command G, you can object group, you can right click, doesn't matter. And I know this is the right, so I'm going to put right group. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom, with the other pieces on this side. So I'm going to highlight and click once for my airbrush, hold down my shift and click on the left, and Command G, and this is my left group. Okay, so now I'm gonna just zoom out a bit and click somewhere off of your mat, because we're now going to select things. So I'm going to take that right group and I'm going to move it out of the way. And since it's on the bottom, let me move this over. Actually, I'll leave it here so we can see. Since it's on the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and hold down with my mouse. I'm going to click on it once and hold down, and then that's how you rearrange things. So I'm going to leave the left on the top because right now it's on the top of the map, but in the end this really doesn't make any difference. So let me go back to my view. And so the next thing we need to do is all of this white that is left over, that kind of spills over to that other side, we need to get rid of that. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to crop it. Now in the other video, if you watched my video that I was using Adobe Illustrator, I used clipping masks to do that. But I don't need to do that here. I can just use a crop tool because I have it and it's pretty easy to use. So what I want to do is select my drawing tool, and I'm going to use a square, or the rectangle. Since this will be a rectangle, the rectangle fits perfect. And I'm going to come up to this top corner, and I'm going to hold down my mouse and drag it. Now I know that my design is 8.2 by 9.3. So right now it doesn't have to be exact. This honestly doesn't matter because we're going to go up here, and right here we can put in exact dimensions. Make sure that your little lock is open because we don't want to keep the same aspect ratio if we're changing anything. So that's 8.2 high. And you would do this for whatever size your background. Usually when I design my own, I use 8.1 because I like that better for the tumblers. I don't like to have that wrap so much around the bottom, but this came 8.2, so I'm going to use 8.2. And the width is 9.3. So that's the same. So just hit enter and it will change it automatically. So now that I've changed it a little bit, I'm going to go up here to, I do this every single time. After you've used your square or your rectangle tool, you need to get out of that and go back to your selection. So you can either hit this little square or this little pointer, or you can use your keyboard and hit the letter V. V will go back to your selection. Alright, so let me go up here to this little zoom, and I am on the rectangle. It says rectangle, and we're just going to use, I'm just going to use my arrows, my up and down arrows and left and right, and get this so that I want to get this lined up right here on the edge. And if I'm not sure, I can select everything, so when you click off, you're not holding anything down, and I can just, I can just select a square and then I can move it over, and that will move everything. So it might be easier for you to see on the white background if you move it, but you have to make sure and drag your cursor over all of it. Otherwise you'll move the pieces apart, and that's the last thing. You do not want to move these pieces apart right now. Alright, so now we have, so now we have a rectangle, which says rectangle, and we have the left group. So at this point, the reason we did the rectangle is that's going to be our crop, or kind of like in the other video, this kind of like the clipping mask. So this is what I'm going to use to crop. So now I'm going to take my left group. Now I don't need to crop the mom. The mom's already the right size. The only thing I need to crop is that white. So I'm going to highlight left group, and I'm going to Shift Command G, or you can use your right mouse or object, and ungroup. So now when I ungrouped it, you see I have rectangle, airbrush, and left. I'm going to click off here somewhere. So we're going to deselect everything. And what I need to do is only select 2 because I don't need to crop the left. Like I said, the left is already the right size. I'm only cropping that airbrush. So I'm going to select the rectangle, hold down my shift, and select the airbrush. Now over here in the panels, you find your modify panel. And the modify panel is right here. It looks like the two, a rectangle and a circle intersected, and you click on that to open it. And in the modify panel, there's lots of different functions here, but we only need the crop. So you're going to find your crop and click on it. And when I did that, as you can see, it's gone. So all of that white is gone. All right, so let's get back to my layers. I have to open that back up. And you see I have polygon. So the polygon was that piece that we cropped. It's now the white. So this is actually your white piece of what's left of it. So I'm going to rename that, and I'm going to hold down my shift, and I'm going to click on my left, and I'm going to Command G and group. And this is what I mean by I have to constantly be renaming things to keep stuff straight. So right now, that one is done. So you can see, I'll move it over here. There is, the white's gone. All right. So now that we finished that, I will go back and I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other one. And I'm going to go through this a little quicker because of time, but the steps are 100% the same. So right group and my selection tool, oops. Close enough. .3, 8.2, enter. Now I'm going to hit the V to, okay, it should have worked, but it didn't. Okay, I'll go back and hit my arrow instead. Now I'm going to take this little crop, or this little magnifying glass, and you see I'm way off. So I'm just going to move my cursors over, and let's click off somewhere. And I can move it over out of the way and check it, because I might be able to see it better over there. Okay, it looks good. So now let me zoom back out, and I have my rectangle. I'm going to move my rectangle down so I'm staying here within the same group. And I'm going to take my right group, Shift Command G, and ungroup. Now I have rectangle, airbrush, and that right piece. And I'm going to select the rectangle, select the airbrush, come over to the modify panel, and hit crop. So now I can select both and Command G. I got to go back up here to my layers. All right, so now that I have my 2 layers, this is right. Actually, the right, I'm going to change this to bottom because it's going to be the one on the bottom, and this one will be the one on the top because obviously it's on the top. That's how things are arranged. Whatever is up above is stacked on the top. So I'm going to click once on the bottom, and I'm going to hit center to page, and then I'm going to click once on the one I have labeled as top, and I'm going to hit center to page. And when I do it this way, it puts everything back in the exact spot because I don't want to have it mixed up, or I don't want to have it off center. So that's why I use the center to page a lot. Okay, let me move that back over. All right, so now we have our top copy. And if we open this up, so Command Shift G, and we open the bottom just to show you what I'm left with. This polygon, whoops, this polygon is the other white piece. So I'm left with the white piece, the left, which I have left, which is this mom graphic, the other white piece, and then the other mom graphic. So the mom graphic that's just a duplicate. So of all of it, that's the last thing I need. I really only need white on the left, I need white on the right, and then I need the mom piece in the middle. So what I'm going to do now, since that left was on the top, I'm just going to highlight it and I'm going to hit delete. So now whenever I'm done, you see I have white, I have the other white, and then I have the right. Now that right has to go in the, if you look at the stack, it has to go on the bottom because those whites are sitting on top. So if I took that and I dragged it up, you're going to see it covers it. Or I put that clear at the top, it covers all of it. So you have to make sure that your things are stacked correctly. So after that, that's it. You are completely done. But as a safety precaution, I would suggest highlighting everything and Command G and group. So now you are ready to print. So you have that, and then if you already have your name, you can copy your name and you can add your name in. And then, like I said, if you're using legal size paper, this will fit on the legal paper. You can do the whole background, and you have extra room on the side that if you want to print the name at the same time, there's no reason to waste paper. So that is the pretty simplified, I guess. I think detailed enough, but simple enough that even with the free version, you can do this. So if you're making sublimation tumblers and you hate that seam down the back and you want to mask it, you can get creative. You can I've made backgrounds on Procreate that kind of have that spray painted look, or kind of like the power wash look, or that bleach effect. And that's a great way I found that's a great way to hide the background or to hide the seam. And then you can also add the name or any other personalization if you want. So anyway, that's it. And once you get this done, you're ready to go and it's ready to print. So thank you for watching. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to leave them below. And again, thank you.